Hey everyone, Andy Huang here. I'm here with John Haack, and today we're going to do a quick interview. For those who don't know us, quick intro, my name's Andy Huang. Been powerlifting for about 10 years. My best numbers, I have a squat of 881 pounds, bench 529 pounds, deadlift 848 pounds, and my best total is 2205.
My name's John Haack. For those that don't know me, I've been powerlifting for about 11 years now, lifting for 21 at this point. My best competition lifts are 804 on the squat, 600 on the bench, 939 on the deadlift, and my best total is 2300, which is the world record for the 220 weight class.
So my training philosophy, I believe in training each block as its own sets and reps. We call it block periodization. So I believe in the off season you should do either phase or block periodization. So a phase would be a hypertrophy phase, and that's where you're focusing on higher reps, you're trying to build more muscle. This is done way more in the off season versus when you're in prep. And so this is where you're focused on gaining muscle, like I said, and doing weights that are lighter, and you can focus on technique. And you can also use this time to increase your work capacity. And if you need to cut down on weight or lose fat, it's also a better time to do that because you're doing so much more volume. And then another block after that would be called, I call it the strength phase. And that's where you're doing more sets of 4 to 6 reps. And this is where you're really building that strength and taking advantage of that new muscle you've accumulated during the hypertrophy phase, and then building the strength. And then you proceed to a peaking phase, and that's where you're doing more singles, doubles, and triples. And at this point, the strength you've already built up during the strength phase, and now you're just refining your technique, getting your nervous system more primed and more used to higher intensities, and doing singles is actually another skill. So this is where you're peaking and peaking right for your competition. So that's how I like doing my philosophy, or how my training is what we call block periodization.
So I kind of do something similar to Andy, where I do block periodization, where he splits it up into 3 sections, like hypertrophy, strength, peaking. I kind of split mine up into 2 different phases. So I treat it as my off season and my peaking phase, or peaking season, I guess. My off season is kind of like a hybrid between his strength and his hypertrophy, where I'm doing ranges between 3 to 8 reps on my main lifts. And then the peaking is a little bit of a hybrid between a peaking and a strength phase, where once I start the peaking phase, I'll start hitting singles each week on squat, bench, deadlift. But then I also have rep work days where it's usually in that 3 to 6 range, kind of in that strength building rep range. Also, the way my off season kind of works is that I do more straight sets. So I might work up to a certain weight and do 4 sets of 3 at the same weight. Or I might do a ramping, where I'll do 4 sets of 3 where the weight gets heavier each set. Whereas during my peaking block, I kind of try and train myself to get ready for one really heavy top set and then do back down work. So that's kind of a little bit of the difference between how my peaking versus off season works.
So when I'm approaching a competition, I think the best way to prepare is to approach it as a step-by-step process. It's always going to be a process. You're not going to get to 800 pounds if you haven't done 770 pounds first. So you kind of have to trust your training and just take it a little at a time. You have to take what's there. So just not being so greedy and hitting weights that you just want to hit, versus just taking what has been there and what you've been doing along. So just progressing week to week, adding a little weight each time. Instead of looking 10, 12 weeks ahead, just look at a little bit of how training is day to day, week to week, and just take what's there, like I said. You can always add weight, but if you add a weight too soon, then you're gonna kind of plateau or over fatigue, overshoot, and now you kind of have to readjust there, or if you fail a lift, you have to back off. So it's a lot more predictable when you're just going week to week and adding a little bit at a time. And that's also helps me mentally knowing, okay, this week I just have a little bit more than last week. last week went fine, there's no reason why this week won't go well, versus if you're just making a huge jump, you're kind of like just hoping for it. So that's kind of how I mentally prepare for competition.
Yeah, I do something similar. At this point, I kind of know, like, I take like what my best numbers are from the previous meet, and I set my goal something around like 2.5, 5 kilo PRs on each of them. And then from there, I kind of work back when I'm playing out my peaking block. So the last couple of peaking blocks have been 12 weeks. This next one's going to be 14. And I kind of work backwards from there on those 14 weeks of singles of, all right, if like I want to hit like 600 on bench at the meet, then 2 weeks out, which is going to be my heaviest lift, I'd like to hit around 600. And then a week before that, like 589, 595. And then just kind of go backwards. So I find my starting point, and then from there, I'm just taking small jumps week to week. And it doesn't always go as planned. Sometimes I'm progressing a lot better than I'm expecting, and then I can kind of push it a little bit further, go maybe instead of making like 2.5 kilo jumps each week, I can make like 5 kilo jumps. Whereas other times it doesn't go quite as well, and you have to kind of pull back a little bit, reassess, be like, all right, maybe like 600 is not going to be there this meet. Maybe I shoot for 589, kind of plan out the singles leading up to that, and then just kind of get back on track. I've been doing it long enough where I can kind of tell how I'm progressing throughout the prep to know what I can predictably hit in the meet. So just mentally there, knowing what I'm hitting in the gym, kind of helping me figure out what to hit on meet day.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like preparing for a test. If you're not doing all the studying week to week and leading up to it, and then like doing all the preparation, and you're just hoping to do well on the test, you're just like, whatever. But if you've studied and kind of done all the work leading up to it, you're one more prepared for this test. And that's basically what we're doing. We're testing our maxes. So
I don't know. I like to cram.
Except you can't cram in powerlifting.
Oh shit! I have a meet next week. I gotta put 50 pounds on my bench.
I think the most common challenge people face is missing a lift. And so how I deal with missing a lift, the lift can be a number of reasons that you missed it. Whether it's just bad technique, you were very nervous, you weren't confident, or you just weren't strong enough and you just picked a weight that was too much. Whatever the case is, you have to realize there's still the rest of the meet, unless it's like the last lift. But and you don't want to just give up on everything. I know it's hard, but you have to just put that through to the back of your mind and just focus on the next lift and just finish the meet. And then after the meet, reassess, kind of take note of everything that went into it, what you did wrong, what you could have done better, review the videos, talk to some other people. But no matter what, you have to just kind of be prepared that anything can happen, whether it's an injury or a missed lift, like I said, or some misload, or like my meet, last meet, someone got injured like two attempts before me. It was like a 20-minute break, ambulance came, whatever. Had to be prepared for it. So, like I said, you just have to be open-minded, knowing that this stuff can happen, and then just prepare to deal with it and do it as best as you can, and just not get overwhelmed and just freak out.
I think for me, it's probably more injury is my biggest obstacle I've had to overcome on a meet day. Also with missed lifts, but I had a streak where on my third squat, or even before then, I would end up like injuring something to my quad. And going into the showdown in 2022, I think it was, I had this big goal of wanting to hit 1,000 kilos on total at 198. And it's kind of a goal I've been chasing a while. On my third squat, went down, felt a little tearing sensation in my quads. And at that point, honestly, the Massonomics guys, they did a podcast afterwards, and I was kind of hanging out by their booth. And they're just like, yeah, John looks super, super down. I was like, yeah, that's exactly how I felt. Like, I kind of felt like at that point there was just no way I was hitting 1,000 kilos, missing that, not only missing that third squat, which I felt like I needed to hit the total I wanted, but also just being injured where it probably would have taken away from I thought it was going to take away from my bench and deadlift. But honestly, just kind of said, well, I'm here. Even if I don't hit 1,000 kilos, I want to, do my best on bench and deadlift. I'll just take what's there. Ended up doing a lot better on bench than I thought I was going to, and that set me up to be able to just kind of send it on deadlift and able to hit it. So, yeah, that was kind of one of those moments where I faced adversity, and to overcome it actually almost feels better than if everything goes as planned.
I think if I were to give advice to a beginning lifter, number one is just be open-minded and just learn as much as you can. Not all these scenarios are ideal, but here's a few suggestions. Number one, if you go to a powerlifting gym, look at who is the strongest in there and ask for advice. Ask if you could maybe work out with him or just follow him around, whatever. That's always an old school way. Just find the biggest guy or the biggest, strongest person and ask him advice. Nowadays with internet and social media, there's so much free information, YouTube, coaches, Instagram, providing all this great information. And then another option is, if it's affordable, is to hire a coach. When I first got into powerlifting, I hired a coach right away, just because I knew that I really wanted to be the best I could be. I was pretty strong, and I knew like I had the potential to be, one of the best. But I didn't want to do it with a lot of questions and with a lot of I wanted a fast track. I want to be get there as fast as possible. So I hired a coach, and I just learned so much from that. And since then, I've hired a few other coaches, but also talking to other lifters, things like that. I'm always learning. So basically, always learn, be humble, and also don't think that everything has to happen at once. I did hire a coach so I could be as strong as possible, but that's also strong as possible within a realistic time frame, and without, having a coach helped me reduce a lot of, plateaus and a lot of questions that I had. So that's what I mean by speed tracking my progress. But that doesn't mean it's going to happen just because you want it to happen or just because you have a coach. There's still a time that you need to build your strength, your muscles, your tendons, all that. So be patient and learn.
Yeah, I kind of agree with everything he said. Number one thing you can do to really progress early on is sign up for Proven Strength app, which is our app.
Yes.
I'm just kidding.
Proven strength.
Proven Strength. No, I'm kidding. I think my biggest advice is just make sure you're doing it for the right reasons and that you want to have fun in the gym. I think a lot of people kind of got into it in the last couple of years because I feel like powerlifting was kind of a cooler thing to do a little bit. It's very, very easy to do. And then it wasn't something they were doing because it was fun, it was because it was cool, and then they ended up just kind of falling off. The people who stick around for years and years, like us, we just love lifting and lifting heavy weights. So that's gonna kind of lead to your long-term success, and we just kind of love the process of training. And you're gonna have times where you feel weaker. You hit a plateau for I had a bench plateau for a year and a half, but I still loved lifting. I kept going. Eventually I broke through it, and I'm almost double what I was at that plateau on my bench at this point. So just have fun in the gym and figure out what kind of training style you enjoy and then go with that. Number one, I would say, is being too picky with their equipment. A lot of beginner lifters feel like they need to have everything be comp standard. I need my rug underneath the bench. I need this pad isn't very grippy, so I need to bring in a liner and everything like that. And I think it's just too early on for beginners to be worrying about things like that. You really just want to kind of worry about training hard, and that's gonna be your biggest thing for progressing is training hard. And then Andy talked about hiring a coach. That's definitely going to be something that really kind of helps you kind of navigate through just common mistakes like
Technique,
stuff like that, which
programming.
programming, yeah. Yeah, that'll help kind of navigate those common mistakes, but overall, just seeing guys that kind of get a little too picky and then they make that be excuses for not training hard, and then they end up not progressing.
Something I notice a lot is a lot of lifters just stick with SBD, or that's like 90% or a big majority of their training. I think, this is a strength sport, and what moves weight is muscle. So if you're constantly doing SBD and not doing accessories, bodybuilding movements, and focusing on building muscle and getting bigger, then you're limiting your potential, your capacity to build strength and being stronger. So I think if you're not in a comp prep, or even if you are in comp prep, do your accessories, do more accessories. Just do some bodybuilding days or hypertrophy type style training. Because like I said, at the end of the day, the bigger you are muscularly, the stronger you'll be. So don't be so. Also, I think with SBD, you're so specific. It's very common to have injuries because you're doing from overuse injuries because you're doing the same movements over and over again. So instead of just the main movements, also do like the variations such as SSB versus just back squatting or low bar squatting. So stuff like that, different variations. Have more variety when you're not specifically in a meet prep. And one more common mistake is just people overshooting. Going heavier than they need to, going off plan, all that stuff. It's fun, but I think that derails your progress. If you're a really serious lifter and you're very serious about being good in the long run and progressing every year, then you'll start to dial back all those times you just YOLO and just overshoot and just do it for the gram, whatever. First, I think that no matter what you do, injury is kind of inevitable if you're in the sport long enough. If you're pushing hard and trying to be your best, just the nature of pushing your body and lifting these weights, you're going to have injuries. How you minimize it is by, number one, sleeping enough, hydrated enough, and eating enough. And then I'm not a big stretching guy. I'm more of like a mobility or rolling out, and I get massages, but that can help. But other than that, I think programming has to do a lot with it. Over time, you need to have different evolutions of your training. In the beginning, you could probably handle a lot more volume, a lot more exercises and whatnot. But as you get stronger, you're not going to be able to handle as much volume because the weights are getting heavier and your body can't take as much abuse, or it's affecting your body as much. So you have to learn to know when to deload or back off a little bit, stuff like that. And the more you can do that, the more you can kind of manage your fatigue and know when your muscles are kind of like, or your muscles, your tendon, your body is just kind of pushing that limit. Just back off. Like I said, it's better to back off and be safe than keep pushing one extra week just because everything's going well and then kind of have a small injury.
But also don't be too much of a pussy and back off too often.
So it's a fine line, but that's where like having a coach or just having experience helps out. But yeah, that's why there's also an art to it, and not everyone's going to react the same. So don't always follow what John Haack does, because they recover differently from you. So you never know. But either way, you have to really be aware of your lifestyle, your progress, and keep track of that. Otherwise, you're just kind of like guessing.
Yeah, I think he talked on like all the main points, which are sleep, hydration, and you don't have to do too much for a warm up, but just a little bit of biking at the beginning, maybe just kind of move around before you start touching the weight. Those three things will help prevent the majority of injuries.
Yeah, or like John's visiting, he's traveling, he's flying. He's definitely probably not eating and drinking as much.
No.
So maybe the day after you fly, don't go heavy. Just treat it as a light day. Try and drink more, eat more. But But yeah, just things like that. Or if you had a late night partying, whatever, don't go in the gym the next day and try to crank out like a hardcore workout. Just be more smart. I think so I've had a lot of injuries. I've had torn pecs, torn bicep, torn both adductors, torn knee, torn quad. I think that's most of them. But anyways, my biggest one was tearing my quad squatting. Pretty sure it was off the bone, and I had black and blue in my growing and legs for weeks and months. And it took about 8 months till I was back squatting to where I was squatting just decent weight, but also to where I wasn't like mentally scared to even squat. But anytime you have an injury, you just have to kind of, if it's a more serious injury, it's not like something that's like, it's not a tear. Basically rest in some ice and just backing off will probably be fine for you. But for something more major, I would definitely see a doctor or physical therapist and then follow their advice. But from there, it's just kind of, you have to just be patient and go a little bit at a time and just know that like you will get back to where you were, but you have to do it slowly and just know it's going to take time. But also don't be afraid to push it within reason as far as your medical professional telling you what to do. But I like to just, like even when I was starting to back squatting and it hurt to do squats, I would just squat to a range of motion that didn't quite bother it. So, if it squat all the way parallel hurt, I would just go right before that. So it's just, there's ways to work around getting back to that, just doing exercises that are similar but doesn't quite cause that pain. But either way, just be patient and you'll be back there.
Yeah, like knock on wood, I haven't had anything too major. Most of the injuries I've had have been kind of minor strains where like a week it really hurts to like kind of move, but then after that week I can start like walking around pretty easily, and then I can kind of start like working back with like super lightweight, and I'm pretty much back to full strength within like a month or so. Overall, I've been pretty fortunate in that aspect where I haven't had to deal with like 8 months not being able to squat really. But the injuries I have had to deal with, mostly like Andy said, kind of try and work around the injury, make sure you're still able to train as much as you can. Like if you injure your lower body, maybe focus on upper body at that point, or try and find variations of the movements of like, let's say squat, you can't squat, like high box squats, because it might be something in the hole that's causing you issues. Work around it, and then I would try and also throw in, as best you can, really light stuff, just kind of like get that full range of motion. Depending on the injury, I like to kind of go something where like it hurts a little bit, but it doesn't feel like it's going to get worse by doing the movement, and that's kind of usually ends up speeding up my recovery process.
So I will be 40 in 2 months, and so I feel like I've pretty much done what I think I could and what I want in powerlifting, but there is one more goal that I have, and it's within reason, and that is the world record squat for my weight class, the 275 pound weight class. Right now it's at 909 pounds, which is like 412 kilos. And so, I'm only 13 kilos away. So that's something that I like to hit before I retire. But no matter what, I think after my 40th birthday, and I'll give it one more year, and I think I'm going to retire. But I say that every year, and then I make just enough progress, and that damn carrot just keeps dangling in front of me. But honestly, though, I think just for my health and just for my time and effort into the sport, I think I do want to give it one more year, give it my all, and hit this world record. And I think after that, I'll be very happy and content with what I've done. And yeah, that's like the only goal I have so far right now. And then after that, within powerlifting, I just want to continue to give back by coaching and being at meets and with Iron Rebel, like sponsoring our awesome athletes and just being around everybody, still being around the sport, and put on meets, be a meet director, and just continue being a great promoter, ambassador of powerlifting.
So for my goals right now, the biggest one, which I've been kind of chasing for a while, is 2300, 198. My last meet, I was able to hit 2300. Fortunately, was not able to finish the cut to 198. Weighed in at 206, so gonna give that kind of like one more go here in about 16 weeks, and then if that goes well, my plan is to compete in strongman in December at official strongman games. I'd like to win that title of world's strongest man under 90 kilos. I think it'd be just a really cool thing as a fan of strength sports to have both highest dot score of powerlifting and also the title of world's strongest man under 90 kilos, kind of be the undisputed strongest guy under 200 pounds. So those are kind of my two short-term goals. After that, I'd like to move up to 220 and then really push my total in that class. I'd like to, so I was like a lot of powerlifters, guy I look up to is Ed Cohen, and I kind of definitely want to finish my career being in that same discussion of who is the greatest powerlifter of all time. And to do that in my head, one of my goals is to match what he hit at 220, which is 2405 or 2406. So once I move up to 220, that's kind of the number I want to beat in my head right now.
What keeps me motivated to keep competing is, like I said, one of my goals is to hit this world record. And it's just kind of like, my whole life I've been in competitive sports, and you're just trying to be better. And lifting weights, I've done it for 23 years, and I just love lifting weights. And to have a goal to train for, I think that helps motivate me, trying to chase these goals and just be better. Overall, I just think that lifting is great for your body, for your mental health. And so, I don't really have to be motivated to lift weights and to lift heavy. It's just something I love, I've been doing for so long. It's part of my life, it's my lifestyle. But there are times when I don't feel like going to the gym, or I don't feel like lifting or doing the program that I'm supposed to do. I'm just not motivated to do sets of 8 on deadlift or squat. But I inevitably do it. I just know that's the process. And we talked about you have to enjoy the process. You don't have to enjoy it every single day, but overall the process of getting stronger is this grind that you have to just fall in love with. And so I think also doing hard stuff motivates me because I'm doing something that not everyone likes to do, not everyone can do. So that is separating from someone who doesn't do what we do. But like I said, at the end of the day, I have powerlifting goals, and I'm just very competitive and just in love with pushing my body and lifting weights.
Yeah, I'm right there with him that even without competing, I just love lifting. It's something that's basically been a part of my life since I was 10. I got a weight set for my 10th birthday, and I'm kind of like, I'm not at like towards the end of my career, but I do see like the end of my career like kind of on the horizon, whether it's like 4 years from now or 8 years. And I try and like think of what my life's gonna be like without having that competition, and it just kind of almost like bores me, the thought of it, of like, shit, like, well, what hobbies am I gonna have to come up with now? But
Pickleball.
yeah, maybe tennis. I like tennis.
Yeah.
But on top of that, honestly, like, hateful comments motivate me a lot. Like, I don't know. King of the Lifts did a podcast recently where they like were discussing who the goats, and they didn't even like put me in the discussion. I was just like, well, fuck you guys. Now I'm gonna like do something insane to like really like just make the other people look like pieces of shit. And yeah, that's kind of stuff that motivates me to like individual meets is seeing someone say I can't, and that competitive edge in me just kind of like lights up and just be like, fuck this guy.
So basically, everybody out there, leave hateful comments for John, and keep pushing them, because we'll see some crazy stuff. Thank you to the haters for motivating us.